Around the table, we have Councillor Leonard, Councillor Fournier, Councillor Hawes, Councillor Schaefer, Councillor Fish, Councillor Dean, Councillor Tremble, I'm Councillor Pelletier, and we also have City Manager Deb Laurie. I had to think about that. for a
I know,
second.
you almost called me.
Yeah. Almost called you Councillor Laurie.
Yeah.
All right. Also on Zoom, we have Councillor Yakabaga. First on the agenda, we have the Municipal Review Committee Board Member vote.
Good evening. It's your time. Aaron Judery, Public Works Director. I sit on the Municipal Review Committee, and I'm not sure how familiar our two new counselors are with Municipal Review Committee. Should I give an overview?
That would be helpful.
The Municipal Review Committee is a group of 115 communities that have banded together I think, back in the mid-90s, to handle waste problems. Entered into a partnership with PERC and started doing waste to energy, burning our waste to create energy, being sold back to the grid. That agreement ended, and the Municipal Review Committee and all the membership voted to start looking at something else that did not require waste to be burned, just looking at emissions and that type of thing, and really trying to come up with a solution for recycling. So the facility in Hamden was opened or built by Fiberite, opened by Fiberite through a subsidiary, Coastal Resources of Maine. It ran for about 7 months successfully. Then they ran out of funding when COVID hit, and there was a lot of uncertainty. Businesses were facing a lot of uncertainties at that point. The bondholders that were funding that next round held that back and said, we're done with that. So they closed the doors in 2020. The Municipal Review Committee has been working very hard to get the facility open back up. That required either a good deal of funding in the range of $20 million or bring on a partner. Recently, a partner was identified, vetted, and an agreement was signed with them to get the facility back up and running. Taking a step back, this is the Municipal Review Committee again. So this isn't really about that Hamden facility. The Municipal Review Committee is represented by a board of 9 members. 3 seats are currently up for election. And additionally, we have a 4th seat that has been vacated by a member who moved to a different town. So Bangor sits on the committee. Bangor, I represent
Aaron sits on the committee.
The city of, I represent its membership is at large, so I don't represent Bangor. I represent all 115 communities. But Bangor itself has a vote proportionate to the amount of waste that we send through the MRC each year. The total tonnage for everyone is around 100,000 tons. Bangor represents 26,000. So we are by far the largest member. I think the next is in the 5,000 range. So very big vote when it comes to this, because we're proportionally based on our weight. So we do have an agreement to open the facility, but we still have a lot of work that needs to be done. We're working with the DEP. I go down and meet with them next week on the new EPR rules, extended producer responsibility, how we can start managing packaging material coming into the state, and then hopefully reduce the amount of packaging. We're actively working on a solution to manage the waste that's sitting over at PERC. It looks like they do have a buyer, but there's over 10,000 tons of waste sitting on the floor, and it's been there for months. And we just wanted to be part of the solution. So we've been working with the DP on that as well. And we've also developed an associate membership. So other towns in the state that want to take advantage of these advanced recycling methods can jump in, even though they haven't been with us through all these trials and tribulations. We still think that this is the solution for the state. And we want other people to be able to join us in that. So lots of work that still needs to be done. 3 seats up for vote. The 4th seat that has been vacated, the process is to assign to the board will appoint, there we go, not assign, appoint that 4th seat. We only had 4 people nominated. in the end, it looks like probably all four of those nominations are going to end up holding a seat. But I still think it's the right thing for Bangor to vote for the person that is most qualified to fill the seat on the board. My recommendation is that vote goes to Melissa Doan. She's the town manager in Bradley. She has sat on the board for the last 3 years, so this would be her second term. She is very passionate. She works at MMA. She's on the executive committee, and I know there's another committee as well, but she's always talking about waste. And when you go to like this year's MMA convention, I was working the MRC booth and talking with towns, and so many of them say, just as long as my trash disappears, that's all I care. And she doesn't feel that way. She wants people to understand, where's the trash going? What's happening to it? What can we do to be better? So she's just a great voice for the MRC and for waste management in the state of Maine. And she was also recently elected to vice president of the executive committee. So just that much stronger voice that can make sure that we're educating people at a state level. So staff does request approval to cast the city of Bangor vote for Melissa Doan to continue to sit on the MRC board of directors.
Councillor Leonard?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion on that, and I do want to also add a comment as well. Waste is a big topic here in Bangor. It comes up all the time across the political divide. This is not a partisan thing whatsoever. And I think, on one hand, I would like Bangor to, at least here at the council level, to try to be much more informed on MMA or MRC or all these other different boards coming up, just because I think it would be important for us to understand all these different inter-community boards that we are a major key player on, just so that we can be better informed if there is a vote that actually matters, where who we do vote for actually does have some sort of advantage into pursuing the interests of Bangor. It'd be great to know what their backgrounds are. So because the election seems to be inconsequential, it doesn't really matter to me at this point. Like, we have to go with who we have, but I would love to be able to have at least a rundown to start off of a bio of everyone who's on the board and everyone who's also part of MMA, just so that when those elections or appointees do come up again, we already know who's on there. We have at least if we don't have a working relationship with them individually, we at least know of their work beforehand. But I do agree with what you stated about Melissa Doan trying to educate people on the process of how we do this, because there is a lot of misinformation that does get out there to the public. And I think it's important to really set the record straight onto what are the priorities of that brought us to this moment in time right now. Because a lot of us forget about, especially people in my generation, we don't remember PERC. The only reason I remember PERC is because of family and stuff. But it's important to also understand how we got to where we are right now and the decisions that we made to get to this point. So if Melissa's someone who can bring up that history and explain that esoterically to the people, I think that would be a good position. So I make a motion to support staff's recommendation.
Second. The motion, we have a second. Councillor Trumbull.
Yeah, my question, I know Melissa actually served on the MMA executive committee with us. It should be great for this. The other three, Sophie's been on, right? Is she currently on? Are the other two, have they been on the?
Kevin Howell is currently on the board. Paula Scott is from Hamden, which is the host community
Right.
facility, but she has not been on the board.
And is Hamden as the host community, are they trying to get some benefits are they trying to get something special from the facility?
No,
I thought they were
think
asking
they're-
for some tax benefits they didn't previously have or something.
Yeah, I don't, in terms of the MRC, they would be the same
Right.
membership.
Okay.
They are the same membership.
No, but I mean, I thought they were trying to get some special benefits from the facility.
I don't know of them.
Do you know, Deb?
No.
I don't.
Okay.
So we can talk to-
In terms of the MRC, there is no additional benefit. I
No,
don't
but
know
it's
if there's
determined what they're
state-
trying to get out of the facility as the host community. Oh, okay.
I can't-
Is Sophie, is Freeport still in the MRC?
No.
So she's not gonna be eligible, is she?
Correct,
No.
Okay,
which is why you said when there's 3 seats, there's
right,
virtually 3
right,
candidates.
okay.
Yep,
So when Kathy Conlow left the city, an alternative was suggested and they accepted me
Right.
to sit on until the next
Yeah.
election. I believe the same thing will happen there. There's been somebody, because Orono is so active in the MRC, there's somebody in groomed to be able to fill that role if the board accepted it.
Other discussion? Okay, do we need a roll call vote? Does Counselor Yakabaga on Zoom?
Yep.
Need to vote on this?
I think it would be good.
All right, go ahead, Counselor Leonard,
Yes.
Counselor Fournier.
Yes.
Counselor Haas.
Yes.
Counselor Schaefer.
Yes.
Counselor Fish.
Yes.
Counselor Dean.
Yes.
Counselor Trumbull.
Yes.
Counselor Yakabaga.
Yes.
And I'll be a yes as well. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, next up, we have a staff presentation on zoning. Everything you always wanted to know about zoning is what it says in the
Yes.
packet.
That's right. There should be a presentation. I don't know if Cody can pull that up. But for those who don't know me, I'm Anya Collette, planning officer for the city, so.
Feasible.
Okay. So I'm just gonna give a basic rundown of zoning, what zoning is, zoning in the city, and then how it relates to things like our land use plan and our comprehensive plan and things like that. So next slide.
Control it
I was
over
gonna
there.
say,
Yeah,
you drag me the mouse. Oh,
I can just do it.
okay,
Thank you.
then on you can talk to her.
Okay, yeah. All right, so. Yeah, I'll just run through all that and then I'll give a historical context at the end. So zoning is basically, if you don't already know, basically lays out what are the designated uses that can go on a property. And so it also looks at what rules apply. So what are the height limits? What's the amount of impervious surface that can go on a property? And Bangor obviously has many zones, as you can see from this map here. We have multiple commercial zones, many types of residential zones. We have one entire zone for the airport, the downtown, the waterfront. And so, for example, one of the zones, such as for the mall area, is the SMPS shopping and personal service zone that allows many different things from retail to restaurants to gyms, and things like that. And aside from this, there's also something called contract zoning. And so if somebody wants to go from something that is more restrictive to less restrictive, where many different types of uses would be allowed, and there might be negative impacts on the neighborhood, we would look at potentially doing a contract with them where they limit things like, what is the height, it can have a lower footprint, or, these are the specific hours of operation you can do. And those would be tied to the zone change when they go through that process. But overall, the process is the same between a regular zone change and a contract zone change, and I'll go over the process in a little bit. So this is the future land use plan for the city that was laid out in our comprehensive plan, which was passed over the summer. And the comprehensive plan, for those who don't already know what that is, it's the overall plan for the city. And in addition to the land use plan, it lays out many different things, strategies for the city over the next decade, as far as how we want to develop, how are we going to invest in infrastructure? What are we going to do as far as economic development and things like that? But the future land use plan is one of the major aspects of the comprehensive plan. And a big part of that is the growth boundary, which is the thick black line that goes around all of these colored zone areas here. And the growth boundary essentially says the area within this black line is where we're going to focus growth and development in the city. And outside of that, we're going to try and maintain as more low density, rural, farmland type areas. And so the city as a whole developed this growth boundary based on existing water and sewer service areas, because to extend outside of those existing water and sewer service connections is very expensive. And it over time can prove more of a cost burden to the city as well. And in addition to that, we looked at, where are the significant natural areas in the city? Where's the farmland, important farmland and things like that? And a lot of that is in our rural residential areas. And so in addition to the growth boundary, we also looked at, what specific types of land uses do we want to see in the areas of the city over time? And that we looked at what's existing now, what does the community want to see in these different areas? So, for example, we have a lot of the area around the Bangor Mall remaining commercial, but the specific category also lists the potential for mixed use development, which would be something new for that area. And so as we go into the implementation phase of the comprehensive plan, which we'll look at starting early next year, this will serve as the foundation for new zoning in the city. And so we'll be working with the community and you as council and the planning board to develop that new zoning based on this. So as a council, your primary role with regard to zoning is that you give the final approval for zone change request. And then you are the ones that make the decision to adopt the comprehensive plan. And then you also, obviously you appoint the planning board members. And so what happens with zone change request is it first goes to council for the first reading. That's where you refer it to the planning board. And then the planning board does their official public hearing. And that's where we send out notices to people and advertise for them to come and provide comment. The planning board makes the decision whether to recommend or not recommend approval of a zone change. And then that eventually goes to council for second reading, where you'll give the final decision on whether to approve that. If the planning board votes to adopt or votes to recommend adoption of that zone change, it only requires majority of the council to approve. If they vote not to recommend, then it requires 2/3 majority. And so that kind of gives some sway to the planning board input on zone change requests, because they're the ones that review site plans, conditional use permits and all of that. And a lot of that is dictated by the zoning for an area. And then also I did just want to go over the two different types of zone changes. So there's map amendments and then there's text amendments. And a map amendment is where a property owner requests to change the zoning on their specific property. And then a text amendment that usually comes from staff, the board or the council. And that is to change the uses allowed in a zone. So if somebody wants to, if we want to add a new use or to change other wording in the land development code. Yeah, and then the other thing too is just the comprehensive plan. So the planning board is typically what we call the reviewing authority for the comprehensive plan. So they go through a lot of discussions about that as we're going through that process. And then we also have, been to the council as well for the past 2 years talking about the comprehensive plan. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. And also when they do review zone change requests, they look at the land use plan and use that to determine whether they feel it should be approved. And just to provide some historical context, these two maps are just samples of some of the original layout and zoning of the city a long time ago. And so the constitutional authority for zoning was given in the 1920s, and Bangor was an early adopter of that actually. And there was a person named Arthur Comey. He developed some of these original zones and layouts for the city. He also did zoning for other major cities like Boston and Detroit. And a lot of these layouts use some really good planning practice, like connectivity of streets, density and things like that. And a lot of what is there, we can still see now. So it's just really interesting to kind of look at it in context. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? I do have a question.
Yeah.
Those zones that we have in Bangor, are any of them unique to Bangor, or are all of these zones present in cities across the country?
Definitely every municipality has unique zones. In general, you'll see, commercial, residential and things like that. Bangor does have a lot of zones. I think, bigger cities tend to have mini zones, but, yeah, it's very individual to the community usually. So,
Other discussion? Thank you, Anya. Appreciate it.
no problem.
Okay, we are moving on to city council guidelines.
Yes, so we reviewed sort of this draft. Has it been 2 weeks now? My
Yes.
Goodness, last week is just throwing me right off. So we had a general discussion. These seem to have been well received when we walked through them 2 weeks ago. I did make just a couple of slight changes to what you may have seen before. In here is a definition of public proceeding. I didn't include a note that if you are all at some place for a social event, as long as you are not talking city business, it is not considered a public proceeding. So I added some clarity in here, like we had around some of the political activities. I did also add a couple of new common acronyms. MRC was one, by the way, because when I saw the items coming up for this week, I went, oh, nobody knows what an MRC is. The newest one I just wrote down, that's not an acronym, so. And for those of you who don't know, impervious surface is basically is anything that's a roof, pavement, an area that isn't natural ground. When she said impervious, when she referenced impervious surface, I thought, oh, we haven't talked about that. So the only thing that is different in here that is what we have not been doing also, but it was included in the initial 2 drafts, was the fact that once we collect all of your statements at the end, we will consolidate them as it relates to conflicts and post that on the city's website. But I didn't know if there are any additional items that you wanted to talk about, or if you wanted to move forward with adopting these at some point. So I just bring them back for that purpose.
Thank you. Questions and comments?
I'm sorry, you said to move forward. This is already part of, you just made some minor tweaks to this?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's no different than what you've
Right.
seen previously, with the exception of 2 small changes.
Okay, and that's what when you say adopted, that's what we adopted.
We've never adopted this at
Oh, we've
all.
never adopted.
We've never adopted
Okay.
this at all.
So this would go to the next council meeting?
Mhm. If that's what you'd all like, sure.
I'm fine.
There is one thing that I was hoping we could include in here, and that's some language around civility and the way that we approach and treat each other within the context of our meetings.
Okay.
I had shared with you, I believe, some
Yeah.
language that other municipalities have adopted, and
Mhm.
thought that might be a good add.
Mhm.
Counselor Schaefer?
I would support that fully.
And
Have you got
So what
that
is that?
language?
So what's that wording?
there are 2 or 3 different options, and I think what we'll do is, if that's where the council would like to go, is we can certainly, you have a couple of choices, you can move forward with and adopt this. And at the same time, we can draft the additional language for civility so that it can be included and amended. I would view this as a living document. I can see where you may want to continue to add portions to it. For the point of clarification, I guess, to me, I think it would be best to have potentially a civility clause added to our ethics clause, so that it becomes part of our ethics ordinance and not just an operating policy. And we may want to talk to the city solicitor and perhaps the Board of Ethics just to brush up on that final, but I think we had some good examples that we could pull together pretty easily.
So would we adopt this and then amend it at a future meeting to add that, or do we pause and
We
wait?
can pause and wait. We've worked this long, and if we're all willing to operate this way and adopt it all in one fell swoop.
And if we pause and wait, are we still continuing to do just the Monday meetings, and like those changes are
Correct.
gonna happen no matter what?
Yep.
I would pause and wait, and let's review this
Okay.
early, maybe at the next, have it by the
Yeah.
next workshop.
Sure. Okay.
Comments, additional questions? Okay, I think that's the direction.
All right.
Thank
That was
you.
easy. I like that. Where's my easy button? And here comes.
City Hall relocation update.
Hello, everyone. Courtney O'Donnell, Assistant City Manager. We are now, I think, officially in crunch mode related to the relocation, which is kind of exciting. Well, maybe not everyone knows, gotta get used to updated language now. We put out a bond, how long ago now for the renovations? It
Oh, gosh.
was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too long.
For the first floor to basically make a more user-friendly experience for our citizens who come into City Hall seeking, whether it's, you know, they need to register their car or speak to assessing or whatever service they're there for. It's kind of a one-stop shop. So that work will be underway shortly, and as part of that, everyone in City Hall will be relocating, and we have identified a space down at the Penquist Building, just down the street, which is pretty convenient. It's 262 Harlow Street. And so in order to facilitate that move, the City Hall will be closed to the public on Friday, December 15th. And then Monday, December 18th, we expect to be open for business in the Penquist Building. And what's great about it is when you first walk in, first of all, there's two entrances. The one on the left will be for day-to-day business. And when you first walk in, our, what's Angie's title?
I think she's referred to as a switchboard.
Yeah, she's just a greeter, sorts of directs
Greeter.
folks depending on what their need. She'll actually be right there on the right. And we'll have windows and things for treasury and clerk and other items. The other entrance down further is for public meetings. So and everything will be signed appropriately. We'll have big billboards because it is a one-way entrance. Since the entrance is on the backside of Penquist, you have to drive down and it's one way back up next to the federal building. So we'll have signage and everything available for that. A press release went out late today. Hoping to do media interviews this week to make sure that the public's aware, in addition to social media, physical signage, updates on the website, meetings like this, things of that nature. We do expect this project to take 18 months or so, so we'll be down there for a while. We do expect some delays depending on what folks are seeking. Certain documentation, for example, might not be readily available down in the Penquist Building, so we may need to make an appointment with folks, but for the most part, folks will be able to come in and register the car or look at maps, general day-to-day business of our citizens. With that said, I would like to remind everybody that beginning Monday, December 4th, we are completing our transition away from a live broadcast on the government channel to city council meetings being broadcast the day after at the same time. So for example, city council meetings typically occur on Mondays at 7:30. They will automatically broadcast Tuesdays at 7:30, in addition to the regular rotation of those meetings. People can still participate via Zoom, in person, and we are transitioning from Facebook Live to YouTube Live, which is a more robust way to not only store our videos, but also to do live broadcasts, and it still keeps it open and accessible, similar to Facebook. So that's coming right around the corner. And of course, folks can reach you all at counselors@bangormaine.gov. So we will be moving staff in phases over the next few weeks. So we ask for everyone's patience as we kind of get through that transition of moving buildings. But other than that, we're seeking to streamline the processes and make sure that it's as easy on citizens as possible.
What questions do you have?
Looked like you had a question.
Well, when do we report there?
Report there?
Like we'll be here until the 18th?
Yes, you are here
On
until the 18th.
Nope,
Yeah,
on the 18th, you'll be down there.
right. She said, are we here?
Oh,
until
yeah,
then?
yeah.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Yep, so the
No.
December 11th will be your last council meeting here. And for those that may not have looked at the plans, council chambers are actually being moved to the first floor. So that will be the last meeting, presumably
room?
in this room.
How long has this been the chambers?
1969,
Since it opened at City Hall.
So instead of a gavel, we'll have a wrecking
was a
ball.
federal court.
Yeah,
And until what? Because it wasn't that long ago that the petition,
Yeah.
the courtroom petition
Yeah.
was still in this
That
room.
way, Yeah,
I was there.
yeah, I used to be a table in the back for the Bangor Daily News.
wow. Yeah,
Other questions or discussion?
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much. We're on to manager updates.
Yes, so just a couple of quick things. There's an item on tonight's agenda that's may look a little different, but it isn't really. It's just that we haven't done one for a while. It's on the consent agenda. When a city has, when a property has matured tax liens on it, when there's a sale between two properties, we require a developer agreement because in essence, we are a potential. The city solicitor will tell me we do own it, and I'll say, we haven't taken possession of it. So we do a development agreement so that we make sure that the building comes up to code within a certain period of time. And if the purchaser fails to do that, property reverts back to the city. So that is our way to ensure that properties that have been not taken care of, that are in the process of being bought by another individual, are brought up to code, and the agreements are all in there, and it lays out what has to be done and how much time folks have to do that. So that didn't show up on a committee anywhere, and so I know that may, but it is part of our adopted policy. I saw the press release went out earlier today, so just wanted to I was going to remind folks the tree will be set up tomorrow in West Market Square. And I was glad to see that the release kind of referenced some long-term city donators, I will say. So Dan Sprague has been doing and identifying trees for us for almost 25 years at this point. Hart Electric has been working with us to help get them set up and string lights. And this year, Fraser Technologies is going to join as well as the public works staff. So that was nice to see. And then I just wanted to follow up, at our last council meeting, there was a public comment shared that last spring, 80 children in the Bangor school systems were unhoused. There was also concern that, due to the spike in evictions, that number may have increased dramatically since this spring. I just wanted to provide some context to that statement. Last year, our school department's McKinney-Vento program did indeed interact with 80 families. A student's eligibility for the program is defined as a student who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, which includes those staying in shelters, temporary housing, couch surfing, doubling up with other family members or friends, or living with relatives instead of within their own home. I did follow up with the school department that we are currently working with 20 students. As it sits right near here, none of whom are living in vehicles or with no shelter in place. The school department continues to support the needs of the students and actively works to facilitate safe and permanent housing for all that they come in contact with. And our community service manager began participating in the monthly school social workers meeting. And once that position is refilled, that collaboration will continue. And just sort of an update, if you look ahead on your joint meeting agenda with the school committee, an update on McKinney-Vento, which is how the federal government defines the program that works with students who are unhoused, is defined in that way, not a fixed, regular place to live. So that had been long in the works to be part of the update on Wednesday. So I just wanted to provide some clarity for that statement. And that's all I have.
Excellent. Councillor Yakubaka?
Thank you. So I have a question, Debbie, please. So we had, the statement seems to be right or correct that we had 80 families where their housing situation was not stable. And now it looks like it's just 20, right? That's what the school department confirmed, you're just 20.
So the 80 was the cumulative total of households that were worked with last year.
Yes.
My understanding is it was never 80 at one point. So to compare that 80, this year to date, they've worked with 48 households.
Okay.
14 of them have been, have found permanent housing. 14 have been, have left the district either through permanent housing or other purposes, and 20 are still within the program, the McKinney-Vento's program. So the 80 last spring is sort of the 48 where we are here. It's year to date, how many interactions. Yep.
So this number, it could go up and down based on maybe circumstances. It could be living conditions. It could be financial situations. It could be anything, right? So it can go up and down.
Correct, but I was
Okay.
just at least pleased to hear that there were 20 who were 20 who are
Yeah.
currently enrolled in the program, and all of whom were inside.
Perfect. Yeah,
That
that's promising.
That was my
for sure.
concern.
Yes, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep.
There questions or discussion? We have reached the end of the agenda.
Cool.
We are adjourned.
No.